Did everyone get my email?
I still can't hear anybody.
You still can't hear us?
Yeah, I got your email, Brett. I was about to
Yeah, I
read
got
when
it.
we get
I got it up,
started.
Brett.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can all hear you.
I don't understand.
Do you not like test this before you just jump on? Click the button that says I am not using headphones. I am not
yeah, when you jump into the room.
headphones.
Did you do that, Tara? Oh, she can't hear us, so we're talking to a nobody, Brett. Welcome to The Family Favorite, a podcast where we unpack our very different life's adventures while remembering that we're all part of the same dysfunctional family tree. Remember to never take yourself too seriously, because there's only room for one family favorite, and spoiler, it's probably not you. All right, we are loving technical difficulties as we head into week 3, right?
Loving them.
Okay.
I don't know what the problem is.
We are amateur podcasters for sure.
Well, I mean, since we have, again, so many raving fans. So
That's right.
we'll do a check-in to who last week's favorite is eventually, but we don't even have enough statistics yet to jump into that. But we are definitely having a whole bunch of statistics happening today. Everybody's super excited about graphs and charts.
I honestly feel like I know that we're doing this every other week. Sorry, I'll just hold it. Instead of doing it every other week, this episode should just be posted next week because 2 weeks from now, people will have moved on.
That's correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So before we jump into highly anticipated election talk, let's see if anything happened in anybody's life that wasn't about the election this week. So what have you all been up to? Tara, how is the mouth situation?
I had to go have it cleaned out, stitches removed. I don't know. It was brutal this morning. And then he packed it full of something to clot it. Essentially, I had a dry socket, so the blood didn't clot. So they had to clean it out and pack it with like fake, what they call like it's a fake synthetic blood clot to stimulate the healing process. So I've been throbbing for 7 days, and I'm hoping that now I will get some relief.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, it was nice.
Brett, how about you? Do you have a new kid yet?
No new kid.
Not yet.
Not yet. This week. It'll be this week.
So
Before
this week?
Well, the official due date is on the 20th.
Okay.
Doctors are wanting us to not go beyond that date. And Shannon is feeling as soon as she is done picking up the rest of this household, her body's going to tell her baby time.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that'd be a fun update. At least you'll have something exciting happening in her life.
Yeah.
We should be wagering bets. This baby could be born on multiple people's birthdays.
There's a lot of
birthdays coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of birthdays. All right.
Lulu
Anything
turns
else
5.
exciting? What's that?
Memphis, she turns 5 on Wednesday.
That's right.
Oh,
Memmy's 5.
Hard to believe.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah, we got Penn's birthday's on the 16th.
And 16th,
Mm-hmm.
19th,
20th, Shannon's birthday.
21st
Shannon's
is
birthday's
anniversary.
22nd.
So we got a lot of dates.
Yeah.
A lot of dates. Okay. How about you, Kurt? What's been new in the happenings this week outside of the election results?
Nothing new at all. Yeah, same old, just business and tired. Always tired.
Why are you tired?
It looks like your vein is extra popping out today.
Yeah. Oh, just the stressors of business, and I've got more jobs than I've ever had going on at one time. I mean, the construction company, we tripled in size this year, which is crazy. And then adding on the jazz lounge, and then, the merch brand, I've been quietly building in the background. So I
Nice.
think I'm just, and maybe that's something we should divulge into. I think people would like to hear, and I think that's where this is going anyhow as a family, is maybe we should get into business stuff on one segment,
Okay.
just hear our opinions on it and what we're doing together or not together, but how we
It's
all
your
kind
week
of.
next week, Kurt. So there you go.
Well, I'm
That's
just talking about a
right.
general topic because when
Yeah.
thinking about, what's going to keep people's attention,
Mm-hmm.
I think what we do have to offer that maybe most other families don't is we all are entrepreneurs. And that's something to take pride in and probably talk about.
It's
Kurt's
true.
probably bulging because his best employee's been failing him lately.
Yeah, Tara didn't pick up the phone at all last week. So
Pros and cons of hiring family.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I still worked.
Also,
Work was
nothing quite
work
says
was done. I just
yeah, but also nothing quite says love by your siblings to like pick out your one facial flaw that you want to make sure it gets highlighted, and it's so kind when everybody points out your flaws, right?
my vein,
Yeah.
it's
we have to
fine.
find something. He's just so pretty.
It's cool. It's kind of my identifier. People still ask me questions to this day. It's almost why I prefer to wear glasses or sunglasses. So people are like,
Why?
"Do you have a black eye?" Because I mean, I always kind of have a black eye from this vein.
Oh, it's so funny. I like don't think I ever even observed it. I'm so oddly unobservant on this.
You
kinds of
are,
things.
because you didn't know the black flag was there either, and it's been there probably since the day he moved in.
I have other things that I'm focusing on. Okay, just
Yeah.
I got a few other balls in the air right now. Sorry.
Yeah, but nothing new on my end. I was reading through Brett's notes. We'll touch on, if anything, on my end, just the social climate post-election has been
Yeah.
interesting. So we can get to that.
Okay.
Well, so we won't be able to know who the favorite is yet.
We don't. I mean, I just said, Tara, while you were out and in, last week's episode just posted like this morning, and we're recording. And so we only have one person who's listened to it so far, and that is our mother. And at least she did vote, though, already, Tara. And so we have one vote on the board, and it's for you.
That's because I guilted her the other day.
Okay. So
She promised me that she would circulate her votes and she wouldn't give them all to Brett, even though he is her favorite.
did she say that out loud?
Yeah. But also, to second that, me and Jeremy and Phoenix watched the podcast last night, listened to it before it came out.
Posted live. Yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix and Jeremy both think that Brett is the funniest. They love him the most. They said he's very dry and he just gets his little one-liners in and everybody keeps on moving, doesn't even realize that he said something so funny until you watch it back. So you got 3 votes right there. If Jeremy knew how to download Spotify.
Look at you. Hey, I got to say, my husband also finally listened to the podcast. I finally convinced him while he was traveling last week. I sent him the links for it. He also listened. But actually, Tara, he said that his favorite was actually you as well.
Oh, well, great.
Yeah, but he thought it was really interesting because he said he knows us all so well. And he was like, you guys are all definitely yourselves in this little
100%.
podcast. And so he's like, everybody is their own little weird quirkiness. And I was like, see, this is why, at least in our mind, we think we're interesting. So
yeah, I will say for the viewers moving forward, though, I think we've got to maybe cut out some of the minutia in between. And
I'm not cutting this out, Kurt. We're like raw recording it.
Rogan style.
Rogan style, man.
Well, that's fine. Well, then let's just be cautious of our like side tantrums or our side kind of I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Like the one you're doing right now?
Like the one I'm doing right now that just go nowhere and we just kind of talk bullshit back and forth.
Gotcha.
Let's just be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Our side rants.
All right.
Like what's happening?
Let's jump in. So this week, Brett was the lead on the topic. And so since the recording is occurring post the 2024 election, of now named President-elect Trump. We're going to jump into some post-election conversations from our perspectives, which should be amusing. And since Trump had his bigly win last week, big, huge win.
Huge.
And
The biggest.
in the week, biggest, it's going to be huge. And since the week has
Nobody's done it bigger.
Nobody's done it bigger.
Technically, he's right.
All the things. So since the week has passed already, we've already seen, like, in the period of 5-6 days, a bunch of different world leaders kind of falling in line, a bunch of different things happening. And there's a little bit of scuttlebutt happening with the whole Senate election thing right now.
Mhm.
But let's start with the rundown of charts and graphs from B to just give us a little bit of statistical analysis. And we're not going to get too far in the weeds here, Brett, because like Kurt said, some of us might glaze over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
fair.
layman's terms, please, B.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, like, lay it out for us from the political analysis perspective. And if you
Yeah.
start to bore us, I'm going to just jump in and
Idiot's guide,
shift gears.
please.
All right, I'll do my best. I try to keep it brief, but I do have some statistics, so we're gonna walk through it. I don't think this is gonna take long. Plenty of time for discussion.
You know what? I actually brought my notebook because I wanted to write this down.
Okay,
bring
bring your notes if we're
Class,
keeping track.
class is in session. Professor B, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll
OBJJ.
and I'll start with this. You know, we're recording, and by the time our viewers listen to this will be a week old, and there's still vote tallies happening. There's still, you know, undetermined seats. So this is subject to change, but you know, this is covering some of the trend lines and what we can expect in the weeks and months to follow once everything's fully tabulated. So yeah, as Kelly said, we have President-elect Donald Trump taking home the big win, and this is how he did it. On the Electoral College, 312 to Kamala Harris, 226. It's about a 4.5 million vote delta as it stands right now. Still votes coming in. You know, there's still ballots that are able to be received. You have military. There's a lot of reasons why not all of the votes are, you know, 100%. If you go on different websites, you may see like 99% reporting. There's, you know, still a percentage out there, but enough for, you know, the political analysts to make calls and determine who wins. The big pickups for Donald Trump: Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. He has swept the battleground states in a bigly way, which I learned is actually a real word. Bigly, apparently. I just thought he was saying like big league and he was abbreviating it. It's bigly's actually a word. So he beats his previous 2016 numbers where he got 304 to 227. And he beat Biden's 2020 with 306 to 232. So this was a big win on the Electoral College front for Trump and the Republicans. In addition, he takes home that popular vote. This is something that hasn't been done in a long time for Republicans. And we've heard all this discussion over the
2004.
years. Say that again, Kel.
2004 was the last time a
2004, yeah,
Republican
so
won the popular vote.
20
GW.
years for Republicans. You know, over the last several elections, we've heard Democrats, after they consistently bring home the popular vote, that we should get rid of the Electoral College. We haven't heard a lot of that with this election because Trump won the popular vote, so it wouldn't have changed that outcome.
Which that's so impressive, by the way. I think we should reflect on that, especially.
So the university,
everything we were fed leading up to it.
The University of Florida Election Lab estimates that as of Friday, the turnout in 2024 will be about 62.3% of the voting eligible population. That is down from the high water mark of modern era, or more than 66.4% in 2020, but still above other recent elections. Turnout in 1996 and in 2000 wasn't much over 50% of the voting eligible population. I know we're going to talk a little bit about this 2020 election later here and how that 66.5% 20. So quick dive into Pennsylvania. 46,000, probably end up being somewhere around 147,000 difference in Pennsylvania that went for Trump. This was a big battleground state. Many were saying Kamala has to win Pennsylvania. If she can win Pennsylvania, she'll win the election. ABC exit poll, 49% say their financial situation is worse than 4 years ago. This is from Pennsylvania specifically. 41% are dissatisfied with the way things are going in the country today. 77% of Pennsylvanians voted for their candidate versus against their opponent. So this is the false narrative that the media was trying to drum up, that many would cast their vote against Donald Trump. This whole never Trump movement never came to fruition, and it is not what mattered. You've seen the political pundits on mainstream media talking about, I think Jen Psaki was saying this, like, this never Trump movement, we need to be done with it as a Democratic Party. It's not winning. Those people aren't there. It was a theory, but a theory that didn't test out. And here's a brief poll. This was from an ABC exit poll again. Which one of these 4 candidate qualities mattered most in deciding how you voted for president? Check only one. Has the ability to lead. 36% voted has the ability to lead. 72% of Republicans were a part of that. Cares about people like me, 17%. Can bring needed change, 23%. Has good judgment, 20%. So that's all to show you just a subset. 36% of those polled in this exit poll has the ability to lead was important to them. And we know that vote went towards Donald Trump. In the Senate, we've got 53. The majority went to Republicans, 46 Democrats, 1 to be determined, and that is in Arizona right now with Kari Lake. It looks like she will likely lose that election, but they are holding out to count every last vote. There's a couple more voting drops to come, but not looking good for her at the moment. But it will be a tight race. But a reminder, Arizona voted for Trump, and that state went to Trump. Another surprise in Pennsylvania, Kelly, was Senator Bob Casey lost the election to Republican Dave McCormick. And this is just to show how poorly Democrats performed in Pennsylvania with a seat that's been held by Casey for 17. You're losing established Democrats in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of anecdotes there, and I'll be eager to hear your remarks on the ground there in Pennsylvania. But overall, Republicans gained 3 seats in the Senate. Democrats lost 3. And so, but this brings up, even with the majority in the Senate, we saw this past week, Senate Leader Mitch McConnell said that he would keep the current filibuster rules in place, which require 60 votes to overcome objections. And so will the filibuster keep Congress from passing Trump's agenda? Will we see an even larger push to use executive action to achieve his agenda? We've seen this over a trend line really across many presidents in recent modern era, that executive action is being used more and more because there is a tight gridlock in Congress. But wanted to bring that filibuster up because that's something to watch over the next weeks, because we're going to be electing a new Senate majority leader, depending on how Trump has asked before to kind of get rid of the filibuster rules. So have Democrats. So this is always an issue for either party when you have a tight Senate. On the House side, you got currently 205 members for Democrats, 214 for Republicans. I think that leaves us with 16 seats to be determined, but it's assumed that Republicans will maintain that majority in the House. And so what we're left with is a House, a Senate, and the Oval all in Republicans' hands, basically allowing Trump to execute on his agenda. I believe for the next 2 years. I think if you wait beyond then, you're going to get those rhino Republicans or those that are in very vulnerable seats are going to have to think about some of the votes that they have to make with elections coming up again. So I think you got a 2-year window here. Okay, so how did all this happen? And this is where I'll be brief and we can move on. Here's a couple key points as I understand them today. National exit poll. This was on issues by the Edison Research, which is used by many of the mainstream media. Reuters puts this data out. So, which one of these 5 issues mattered most in deciding how you voted for? The issues were immigration, the economy, abortion, and the state of democracy. Immigration, 90% voted for Trump, 9% Harris. So 90% of those who voted for Trump said immigration is the number one issue. Coming in second was the economy, 80% for those who voted for Trump. 19% that voted for Harris said the economy was the one issue that mattered the most to them. Who can take a guess what was their number one issue for Democrats? Percent, the state of democracy, whatever that means. We don't know, but the state of democracy. Coming in second for Democrats, abortion at 74%. So this poll seems to suggest that abortion and the state of democracy, which were Democrats' leading issues coming into this election, but while polled well across Democrats, they missed the mark when it came to the economy and immigration, right? They didn't want to talk about immigration, and really they talked about the economy was working well. Well, let's look at some of these vote shifts that show something else. They didn't think the economy. 19% Democrats said 19% the economy was important. Incomes under $50,000 a year shifted 25 points to Donald Trump. Democrats completely missed the mark. Black voters, 15 points. Hispanics, 38 points. Asian voters, 32 points. No college degree, 18 points. Under 30 shifted 12 points to Trump. On the Hispanic side, this is from Reuters, the starkest increase may have been the 14 percentage point swing in Trump's share of Hispanic voters, according to an exit poll conducted by Edison Research. Some 46% of self-identified Hispanic voters picked Trump, up from 32% in the 2020 election when Trump lost to Democrat Joe Biden. Here's a source from BBC News. Trump has taken Nevada, the first Republican win in the Western battleground since 2004. In the vote tally so far, there has been little change among the largest groups of voters. Yet the exit poll suggested Trump saw a substantial increase in support among Hispanic and Asian voters, with Harris losing ground compared to Biden 4 years ago. Trump raised his share among Hispanic voters in Nevada by 13 points compared with 2020, which meant he and Harris ended up in a tie, both securing 48% of that vote. And for those who weren't paying attention, Nevada was an extremely tight race and thought to be a win for Democrats. And so while the Hispanic and Asian votes may have been a smaller percentage of that electorate, those small or large movements of even a small group of people in Nevada made the difference for Trump to win Nevada. And then I'll end with abortion issue that we saw Democrats lean into really hard. And as I just stated, was 74% of this exit poll for Democrats, abortion was the leading issue. And so this is Axios, and they listed out, along with the vote for president, there was also abortion on the ballot in this election across many states. And Cal, I'll send all these charts to you and we can see if we can feather them in to our podcast. But states that polled for Trump, like Arizona and Montana, also voted to support expanding abortion rights in their states. So, a contrast to one of the Democrats' leading issues, to what they've been telling the American public, that Republicans will strip women's rights away. We have 2 states in particular, and there's many more, and I think there'll be many more to come. This is what Trump's been saying. We gave it to the states. The states are going to vote. Republicans may not like the outcome of some of this, but it just shows you that the electorate is educated enough to vote for Donald Trump for president and also vote for expanding abortion rights in their own state. The two can happen, both can be true. And I think we saw that across the board, regardless of the demographic, that if you were maybe cared about some of these issues, like abortion in the state of democracy, if you're making $50,000 or less, that 25-point shift, your issue was the economy and immigration. So I'll end it there. And those are just, some things I've been following this week that, sorry, I had my phone going off.
Somebody needs Brett.
So I'll hand it back over to you, Cal.
Technology guy.
I know.
Okay, thanks, Brett. All right, so we highlighted a couple questions we're going to talk about with what you just said. So one of them was obviously the quote unquote abortion female issue. And Tara and I will speak to that here in a minute. But let's start with the younger demographic. So we're nominating you as the youngest, Kurt. And since you're in the demographic that is not married of the four of us, I think that it's interesting. A lot of the polls are showing that the younger male demographic overwhelmingly went for Trump. And I know this even inside my own company with a couple young men that I know that this is the case, and my son. And so what do you think is the trend line for the younger male demographic, why they overwhelmingly voted conservatively in this election?
I think a lot of it's common sense. I think it's also how the left has demonized men in general. It's why their appeal is only to women. That's why I think every young woman that I know, not everyone, but most of them, they're liberal leaning, and maybe they're more easily influenced. I don't know. Maybe they believe the lies that they're being fed, or maybe it's the feminism, the empowerment, this false feminist idea that you must reject the masculine and only embrace the feminine. I think that has a big part to do with it. I mean, men have felt so disenfranchised, especially young men, for so long now. I think it's so easy for society to just overlook men and overlook the struggles of a young man in today's society, just in general as a man. And I think they're just tired of it. They're tired of being disenfranchised. They're tired of being told that they're the problem. They're tired of being told that if they're masculine, it's toxic, and they want to be men. And I think it's really interesting when it comes back around to the abortion vote even. And it's something that a lot of people wouldn't even want to take on until recently. But I think a lot more men are they're having a harder time wrapping their head around the idea of that. I mean, I know me as a younger man, I didn't have much of an opinion on it, but I was never put in the situation where I had to consider it. But as I get older, it just seems a bit more and more demonic that we're fighting so hard for this quote unquote right. And what's even worse is that they have the female population fighting so hard for this quote unquote right, which is, to me, is very disturbing, because I think women are supposed to be like the nurturers and the caregivers. And if we convince women that this should be a right that everybody should have access to, regardless of without limits, I think it's just very sad for society that we're thinking so little of something that I think is actually a very big decision that might haunt you for the rest of your life. But
yeah, well, and I agree with you. I think one of the difficulties with the abortion issue particularly is that we've lost the humanity of the conversation. And the conversation is so intensely with this false narrative of my body, my choice, that at the end of the day, we always want to disenfranchise the unborn, and we don't want to speak about the unborn as a child. Instead, we want to continually disconnect from that. And
Yeah.
when we lose sight of the second human involved in the equation, then it's much easier to stand on one side of that equation because we've lost sight of the second human involved.
Right.
And then to your point, Kurt, I think that wrongly I do empathize entirely with, of course, yes, does the female frequently have the more difficult burden in the event of a non, either coupled or marital situation? If they have the child, does the mom end up being the one to take care? Yeah. But I don't think it's right either when it frequently, last I checked, takes two to tango. Like, we just disconnect the guy from the equation. It's like, sorry, you had something to do with it at the beginning, but now you get no choice. Like, I
Yeah.
just, it's the same thing. And I hear you. I think it's a lot of guys kind of saying, hey, it's interesting. Do you think that the idea of all of the potential wars, which it's nice now that doesn't look like a lot of these are going to pop up, do you think that the young male vote also is a little bit influenced by the potential blow up of like world wars, thinking,
I,
hey, if we go to war, like, it's me that goes?
I mean, a little bit. I think that is how young men feel. I think as societally, men struggle for a long time of their life being invisible anyhow, and societally on like the macro level, they are invisible, and there's no need for them until there is a need for them. There's no need for them until we need you to go fight in our wars. Like, there's no need for them until there is, and I don't think it's good messaging. I think it's a sign, a symptom of a broken society, and it's kind of back to what we talked about, maybe 2 podcasts ago, about the divide between men and women and that growing divide. But yeah, I just think that, like, I mean, you're raising a young man right now. Like, it's more difficult out there now, I think, than ever for men. And I think they're tired of being invisible, tired of their opinion not mattering. And I think this was part of that. This is them having a bit of a comeback and said, you know what, we've let you guys do it your way for X amount of time, and where has that gotten us? It's gotten us into a further divide. It's made men and women almost undateable for each other because they're both just on the complete different side of the spectrum. I mean, I can tell you right now, obviously my followers are predominantly female, but I lost like 3,000 followers overnight just from posting, Trump's victory. And it was a subtle way. I just said, we're so back. And it was all females. And that to me is just so evident of where we are at culturally.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, Tara, what is the vibe in the social atmosphere in the social media world like when it comes to the Trump victory versus the Kamala defeat? And has anything gotten better on social media this week?
Well, on the side of social media that I'm on, which is of course more like the influencer, fashion, predominantly female side of social media, I am for sure in the minority. And like Kurt, when I posted something about Trump, I of course lost followers, which is fine. I've always known, in that world that I am a minority, but it was interesting just to see, I guess, kind of ironic that on The View, women like me were called uneducated white women like me. But I actually think that I'm more educated than these overly educated, or more knowledgeable, I guess I should say, of these overly educated women that I follow on social media. Most of them have college degrees. They're working in fashion or marketing, and they just have no clue what they're talking about. First of all, they don't call it abortion rights, they call it reproductive rights,
Yeah,
which
which is
personally I find offensive because you're not actually trying to reproduce, you're trying to not reproduce, you're trying to murder the infant that is growing inside of you. So I find that hard to come to terms with that. That's how they're labeling it, as a reproductive right. And just the crying on the internet that, my daughter will have less rights than my grandmother. And it's just, they're so uninformed, and it's because they're only watching or listening to one side of the aisle, who is just propagating this narrative that the right hates women, and the right hates gays, and the right basically hates anybody who goes against what they think is considered biblical. And it's just so untrue. So I kind of have stayed off of social media a little bit this week, because it's slightly infuriating. And they are weaponizing men and belittling women like me, who want to have a traditional household, who want to have children and raise them. I've been called a breeder. I've been called white trash, which is comical because I'm actually from the north. So it's unfortunate. And coming from a party that's supposed to be, the poster child for tolerance, and we love everybody and we include everybody, and they're very much excluding, what we've seen now is more than half of this country's population.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Go ahead, Kurt.
I was going to say, I think it's also just like Brett said, that was the most important issue for
Right.
the Democratic side, which happens to be most women. Look how women voted. It's like, what, 70% voted
Yeah.
for Kamala. So, and probably in the younger, I don't know, Brett can pull up that metric. It's probably bigger that in the younger generation. I think that's just, it's so sad and disheartening, though, out in a dating pool, when that is the only thing that is important to women, is the right to terminate a pregnancy, whether it be unwanted or not. And the fact that they cling so hard to that, it's almost like, take a minute and reflect on that as a woman. Is that not, do you not see yourself in the mirror when you're like, that's the only thing that's important to you? Nothing else is important. And it wasn't even on, the presidential election. I mean, it wasn't even on the voter block. Like Brett said, it was to the states, as it should be, but that is their only reason why they were voting, so that if they want to, they get to terminate a pregnancy. And I don't know, that's just really, when you actually analyze it, that's really tough to comprehend, that that's where we're at as a society, that 70% of the women you're going to meet, the only thing that matters to them is terminating a pregnancy. That's pretty sad.
And
Well,
like
I
you
want to push.
said, that was their main issue for voting, except that's not even an issue in this election, because it's already gone back to the states. That's where I
Right.
say these women are so misinformed that they think that voting for Trump or Kamala makes any difference. That
Yeah.
that ruling has already happened. This election will have nothing to do with it. Now, the left is, of course, pushing the narrative that Trump, wants to put an abortion ban in place, which he has vehemently denied time and time again. But it's unfortunate that they've turned an election into something that, didn't even have anything to do with.
And that was intentional, just to get votes, right? It was definitely
Of
intentional. That's
course.
part of their manipulation. But I'm just looking at the non-political side of that. It's very tough, I think, as a male, like that, who wants to have kids. So 70% of the women I meet, statistically, they could terminate, they could kill my kid if they got pregnant
100%.
because we had sex. You know what I mean? And I would have no part of that. It's very disheartening. It's very sad for society, I think. And it's just, and isn't it? And that goes back to, I think, why men kind of stood up, because they're more aware of that. They're seeing that and they're like, well, that's not right. It's almost sad that the men want kids more than the women.
Well, okay, so let's go back to that woman vote. And I think some of this, we've gotten in the weeds on the abortion issue, which is frustrating, as the generally we're all on the conservative or center of this conversation. But let's talk about that woman vote. Okay, I do want to push back on that. I think that this actually, I think the younger women, that statistic is that high, and maybe Brett can confirm this, and I would agree. But I think that in a lot of women's cases, that was not their primary focus here, because we did see a number of statistics where women came out. And I will count myself, I am not in the younger demographic, but there was a lot of women that did come out for Trump. And I think that that goes to the first issue that Brett mentioned that was a lot of people's first priority, that was immigration and inflation as the top two issues. And the raw reality of it, whether or not we want to argue the right for an abortion or all of the conversations around it, maybe on the younger side because they're being lied to that the only way to be successful as a woman is to, not have children, which is just an outright lie. So, no offense to all of you ladies out there if you're listening, but Tara and I are here. We got a few kids between us. We're doing just fine. We fit into different demographics than you. And I just find it so demeaning too that
Yeah.
if a woman dared vote, that somehow they are less than.
Yeah, they're
And
less
like
than.
what, yeah, like what Tara said, where she, would have been called. I hate these demographics too that are like uneducated white women.
Yeah.
It's so absurd to me because
Oh, lost Brett.
You
the
lost me?
absurdity is that somehow your education level makes you more intelligent when it
Mhm.
comes to the electorate.
Yeah.
And that is just it's like this elitist mentality that the elitism does not come from your education. It comes from the way you look down on others. And it's not it's not inclusive at all in any way, shape, or form. So it's very frustrating to me when we talk about people as uneducated or educated, because it's just such a false narrative. Again, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But on the female vote, I think that a number of women moved toward Trump this time because of the raw aspect of security. And when we
Mhm.
talk about immigration, I said this to Brett when I was talking to him last week when we were unpacking this. I said, the reality is that a lot of women really, they most care about the safety of their family, of
Yeah.
themselves. And I don't care whether you want to argue that, I don't, of course, I'm a very strong female. So in no way am I less than a man, quote unquote. However, we are very different humans. And so if I'm encountered with something that is physically unsafe, the physical size of my body makes me less safe than a man. That's just the reality of it. And so, yes, physical safety, immigration, coming into communities that they are not asking for these mass, influxes of individuals from countries unchecked with backgrounds unchecked. Like the raw safety aspect does come into play. And then the inflation aspect also comes into play because, like I mentioned before, if I go to the grocery store and I was the primary shopper, which I'm not actually because I don't go to the grocery store too much, but if I do, I follow my husband around. And if I was the primary shopper and I'm used to spending $100 a week in groceries and now I'm spending $200 a week, you can tell me all day long on the news that inflation is only at 2%, but I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
And that reality is what I think continued to unpack this week, that all these people looked at all of these statistics and they kept boxing everybody,
Mhm.
oh, Hispanics, oh, blacks, oh, women, oh, this, and they just kept boxing everybody. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's super black and white. This is basic to me. And I don't know why we have to keep boxing and identifying people by groups. And I think that what a lot of people missed is that that is actually what the Republican Party did this time, is they did not box people by groups or demographics. They broadened that tent. Some people, some more traditionalist people got a little bit, bent out of shape. And I think that there's room for hashing out conversations, but they basically all said the same thing. We're common sense. We're coming to the table, with a common sense big tent party approach. We're not against any one or demographic. We're against stupidity,
Mhm.
and this just out of control policies that have nothing to do with real life.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to our conversation. Maybe the first time around, what is the role of the federal government anyhow? And how are its citizens understanding its role? And it's so bloated and bureaucratic and it's so far overreaching that I think most people have just they have just assumed that the federal government is to tell them what they can and cannot do with either their body, or what they can and cannot do with their lifestyle or their work. And it's just like, we almost need a clean slate. And maybe that's why Trump is so popular, because I don't really consider him even a Republican candidate. And I think you see that with what he's doing now, with who he's bringing in as all of his administration. I mean, he's cleaning house. He's not bringing any politicians. He's bringing in private sector people. So, I mean, hopefully he can kind of stop the bleeding and get us back to, maybe 100 years ago, how government was set up, how the U.S.
Wishful
government was
thinking.
set up. Wishful thinking, I know, but maybe it can be an education for society of like what the role of a federal government is, what the role of a state government is, what the role of the personal is, like how we should have complete status over our own life and responsibility.
Individual liberty and personal responsibility. Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that there were some good people that came out and spoke against the Democratic Party this week that, just made good points. There were a couple, in the CNN roundtable just telling, basically saying they needed to be introspective and look at themselves as a party and figure out what went wrong and take some accountability. Of
Yeah.
course, some people are still trying to blame the right for, I mean, I don't know how you blame them for winning, but blaming their rhetoric for not beating Kamala. But Bill Maher had a good little rant on his show and just called the liberals a bunch of brats and kind of called them out on their BS and explained to them essentially how they lost this election. And then there was another really good I mean, there's a lot of people on social media that post and that have come, over to the Trump side. But there's this kid I follow, Clarkson is his name, on TikTok, and he is, I'm assuming, gay. And he says, "Listen, I am that middle voter. I am the person that would typically vote for the left, but the left has lost sight of who they are. They are not a Democratic Party anymore. They are so far gone at this point. And that is why I've been pushed to vote for Donald Trump." Like, he really explained it in a way that I guess the youth could more relate to, because typically his content is like comical, and he does do some political stuff. But I just thought it was very good to see that at least some people are willing to stand up and say, listen, like, this is the Democratic Party at its core. This is their issue, that they have just lost sight of who they are as a party, and they're pushing oh, what is he says it so good, like, the rights that they're pushing for are a privilege to have, and the average American isn't making enough money for that to be their concern in an election. These are their concerns, is what's affecting their daily household, what's affecting their children, what's affecting their health, not if their kid can get hormone blockers. That's not
Well, and that goes to that idea of elitism, like I was saying, is like
right.
these
Which is,
people live in
Kelly,
this
I just
weird
have to send it to you because it's exactly what he says.
yeah, this echo chamber of like, I'm better than you. And so how, like, and I mean, just some of the things that people are like, oh, I'm glad you voted for lower price of eggs. And I know that they're trying to be funny, but it's
Yeah.
demeaning because you're
Yeah.
minimizing, like the statistic Brett said, that, real household dollars, when inflation goes out of control, it's a tax that only affects those it doesn't it affects everybody, but it affects those that are earning under $50,000 more. And so you can't be upset when somebody says like, oh, I'm glad you voted for this because it, must be nice to have the price of eggs a couple bucks cheaper. And it's like, you've missed the point. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a real thing if I can't put food on the table for my family.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
the craziest thing to come out of it, and I know I sent it in the group chat, but y'all hadn't heard of it, was this B2 movement.
The B4.
B4, sorry, movement out of Asia. And these
Is this where
women
the
are
women are
shaving
shaving
their
their
heads,
heads?
shaving their heads and swearing off men and taking a stance, you know.
I don't think those
And
women were getting laid anyhow. So
It's like they're removing. You're good. You're
I think we need
you're
less of
essentially
those
stamping
genetics
a giant
anyhow.
red flag on your forehead for these men who don't want a woman like you, you know? I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
thank you for
yeah.
letting me know that abortion is your top priority in life.
Yeah.
It's
And
bizarre.
that's what I go back to. It's just like it's very sad as a society that was
It's
even on the
sad.
when it actually wasn't on the ballot, but it was on
Yeah.
the ballot for a vast majority of the people. When it
Yeah.
like most clearly it wasn't. If anybody understood what has happened in the past 2 years with Roe v. Wade, and
You mean
but
if you were actually educated about the way
right, and then but
the
instead
three
they call
branches of
us
government work?
Yeah.
and instead they call us uneducated, and it's just yeah, and again that's why Trump won because
That's it.
tired of the bullshit. We're tired of being men and women and everybody. We're tired of being told and called names that we're most clearly not. We're just tired of it.
Yeah.
And it's like fuck you guys. Like we're done with it. It's time for us to do things our way again. And I just think that's exactly what happened with this election.
So there's a few things coming out now with some interesting statistics about the impact of media in this election. So this is an interesting one to me because, you know, remember, even leading up to the 2020 election and post, you know, I mean, here we are, right? Basically creating media, alternative media. Okay. And so because of the rise of this, everybody can have a voice. Okay.
Mhm.
And now you're starting to see in the rise up to the 2020 election, there was obviously that came out afterwards a ton of suppression that happened on the social networks. Then they banned Trump for 2 years on almost every social network. But yet we saw that the most people that, you
Hold
know,
on.
sort of
Kelly.
deviated. Did they bring it to the door, Kurt?
They brought it to the door.
They brought it to the door. Oh, Kurt just had his Postmates delivered.
Don't mind us. You enjoy your lunch.
You enjoy your
I
lunch.
haven't
I
eaten
mean,
yet today.
he
Gotta
hasn't
I
go.
eaten.
haven't either.
Okay.
You know what I've been living off of? Milkshakes, strawberry milkshakes for a week.
Gross.
I'll put the
So
I
mic
can't
off.
eat
Don't worry.
anything.
is the rise of like the alternative quote unquote, and you see it a little bit because now you have people obviously coming out and being like, oh, we really have to ban, you know, we have to control social media. And like, I mean, wonder why Elon has become like the darling to hate now is all of a sudden because Elon literally just got like pissed off at one day and bought Twitter. But is like the uncensored and alternative media like the Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, you know, the upcoming, is that the new, do you think we can expect that becomes the new norm for transmission of information?
I think definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
well, we've already seen it. Like this has already happened in the way that we consume shows and movies today, right?
Right.
The streaming services have done really well. I mean, the Netflix, the you know Prime, and so
Yeah.
to assume that mainstream media is going to be able to hold on to a shift that's already occurred, I think is ridiculous. And let's face it, the only reason that people pay deference to the talking heads on mainstream media is only because they are too lazy to sit down and listen to anything for more than 10 minutes on their own. And so for those that are interested in that, they go listen to a long form discussion on Joe Rogan for 3 hours. They go listen to podcasts that are, you know, an hour plus. And so I think what you're just seeing is for those that aren't interested in those long form discussions that really just don't care is what it comes down to. They're okay watching MSNBC and Fox News and CNN because it's like, you know, point and shoot. These guys just, they'll bring up a topic. It will be done in 30 seconds. They'll go on to the next thing. That's done in 30 seconds. They'll bring on a phony panel where there's only, you know, one Republican or one Democrat, and then they all go, jump and argue with that person to prove their own bias point. I mean, we talked about this before. And so, yeah,
last
I
week.
think
Yeah.
that's dead. And
And then it just circulates
yeah, but
for 24 hours until they move on to the next set of topics.
yeah, and I think it just shows too, though, that I mean, wasn't it CNN that tried to do their own streaming service?
Oh, they did. It
Yeah.
died in like 20
Failed
days or
Right.
something.
And
But
so
think, like, who here still pays for traditional cable? Anybody?
no, I have YouTube,
No.
YouTube
Who here
TV.
you have traditional cable, Kelly?
I
Yeah, we
do,
pay for
but
YouTube TV.
that's because we can't get internet to our house
Oh.
any other way than
Okay.
Yeah,
traditional
but I guess
cable.
my other point to
But that's not
carry.
you use streaming services every day.
Yeah, we use primarily streaming services
Okay.
for everything, but
And
we
like,
have to
who's
have
listening to their local radio stations, or are you listening to Sirius? Right?
or Spotify.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Nobody's using these services anymore. Everybody's moved on to, picking their own preferences.
Yeah, I think some people are, but I think that is and to Brett's point about like long form, I think the interesting thing there, which is such an ironic statement, but those who are engaged in more long form interviews or like in those types of understandings, look, people are complex, policies are complex, situations are complex, and if you can't just get a 5-second hit and get the full answer. And so if you listen to the unpack of a conversation, you actually become more educated, which is the greatest irony of all, because all the people that are on the me tell you everything you need to know in 30 seconds or less mainstream media are the ones that are telling everybody who's not listening to them that you are less educated because
Right.
you spent more time unpacking a topic.
Yeah.
They've formatted their shows to this younger demographic who's on social media. They like a 30-60 second video. We're too ADD to watch the whole thing, so everything's about sound bites. Everything's about like just grabbing you in that, give me a hook and let me watch it for 30 seconds, then I'm scrolling on to the next. And that's how all these news stations have now formatted their shows. They're just jumping from topic to topic because
Right.
the average listener can't focus on one topic for
But I think we
longer
can
than
see
that.
that their statistics are also not shining.
Right.
They're consistently losing.
So I think
Oh yeah,
mean,
their viewership
alternative
consistently goes
media
down.
is way up in its viewership compared to
Yeah.
mainstream media. Like
Oh yeah.
the Joe Rogan podcast, we could figure out what that statistic is. It got so many, it's like not even close to like what an average
Tons. And
evening
then
on CNN is.
Right.
there's another good one that I watch. It's Charlemagne the God and
Yep.
the comedian who I cannot think of his name right now. He's got a mustache.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Okay, so he's a Trumper. He's very
Yep.
conservative, and of course Charlemagne is very liberal. But the two of them have a show together, and it is interesting because you get both sides of the aisle. And it's nice to see that, listen, these two people who have very opposing views on life and the world and politics, they're friends and they get along and they can have a healthy discussion every week or however often they put out their podcast.
Yep.
I like to watch that because
that's consistent, because I think most people in real life don't hate each other.
Right. That's the real world. I mean,
Mhm.
you can't, unless you actually physically put yourself into a bubble, you cannot surround yourself with people who think exactly like you do on every single thing.
Well,
That's
I will
true.
say, I think most people don't think that way, but I would say statistically, the people who do think that way overwhelmingly are on the liberal side. I mean, they're the ones who are going to unfollow you. They're the ones who aren't going to be able to sit down and have a
Oh, absolutely.
comprehensive
yeah.
conversation with you about it. They're the
Mhm.
ones who are going to resort to the name calling.
Mhm.
And maybe that's because that's what they're taught, because that's what they're influenced by. I don't know. But it's just like, I had a conversation with these two girls from Holland. Of course, they weren't even Americans. Outside at an event I was at Friday night, and somehow they got into the election, and of course, their only concern was abortion, and they were like so confused that I was publicly speaking and proud of the fact that I voted for Trump, and they couldn't understand why or why anybody would admit that. And I was like, well, okay. first off, you guys are from Holland, so you're not even involved in our political order at all. But I was trying to just explain it to them, and they were immediately calling me a misogynist, a Nazi, like all these buzzwords that have been propagated into their head for the past 4 years. That's all they
I would
can
argue
speak on.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Longer than that.
Mm-hmm. So let's wrap up our election talk with our conspiracy tea of the week, which is sort of the we thought each week we would do a little conspiracy theory. However, this might be the conspiracy theory that is no longer a conspiracy theory. And so let's just unpack it and see if anybody has any thoughts. So Trump won the popular vote for the first time since 2004. Last time the popular vote was won by a Republican was G.W. Bush post 9/11, which again, in the response to 9/11, of course, he was largely seen as this just like great leader that we needed. And so that was sort of this easy vote to popularity. And before that, then it was Reagan. The question becomes, when we look at the raw number of voters in the 2020 election, where did the 10 plus maybe 15 million Biden voters go? And is it possible, or is it now allowed to say that all the people who said something felt a little weird about 80 million people voting for a guy that never left his basement with clear cognitive decline even 4 years ago? They were so enthusiastic to come out and vote for him in a year of COVID when we were kept in our houses and masked, and they came out in these big numbers. Where did those voters just go this time?
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let probably Brett follow up with a more thoughtful answer. But the only difference between the conspiracy and the truth is a couple years. So
I love that. Brett, do you have a technical answer for where 10 to
15? I think it's actually
15?
17 million is the more accurate.
Well, it's a moving target, right? As I said in my rundown, like the popular vote tallies are still coming in, and so it started at 20, and I think a couple of days ago it was down to 15 million. I don't know what the real number is today.
It's definitely north of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I've read reports so far. You just like Google, where did 15 million votes go? Where did 20 million votes go? And it's all the same. It's really all the same article. And the justification for, like, I just looked up one on PBS, and they're saying, well, it's a debunked topic. The 2020 election has already been proven to be accurate. They've certified the election. Trump has lost all these court cases to try to overturn it. And that is their justification, that because Congress, basically approved it.
Because of kangaroo court.
Yeah, I mean, because Congress certified the election, that there was no nefarious action in the 2020 election. So, like, you're crazy to think that there was something up in 2020, and now even seeing in 2024. And I read you guys those statistics that, while this election may have missed the mark from the high mark, it still was quite a big turnout. And the chart that's been circulated around social media, I think, says it better than I, right? Like, the last 4 elections, take 2020 out of there, have all been pretty consistent as far as vote count goes and the people that participate in voting for a presidential election. And 2020 happened. So, I don't think you have to be a conspiracist to say, look, that just, like, what happened? And do we know? Okay, we can all look at the chart and say, well, it looks like there's 15 million more votes here. Okay. Is it wrong then to ask, well, that's a lot of people. Who are they? Where did they go? Why did they choose not to? And what everyone was saying was the most consequential election in history. I just read you the chart. The majority of Democrats, the highest percentage point was the state of democracy. So if Democrats believe, those same Democrats that voted for Biden in 2020, the exit polls said that their biggest reason to vote in 2024 was the state of democracy. Where did the 15 million people go? Right? And so
It's like the unspoken is no longer. Are we allowed to say
so
it
I mean,
yet? Like,
I'm just like I'm not one way or the other on this issue, but y'all know I love facts and the data, and like show me these people. Like we have a popular vote that came down to 4.5 million people difference, but we had a 2020 election that came up well short or well high, right, of this election during COVID. And so like I don't know, did Tara walk in and they counted her and her mask? Like, did she get 2 votes? Like, like what?
I would like to see a statistician actually give us the statistical possibility of that being legitimate, because I would gander it's probably impossible or next to impossible to have that big of a swing in a 4-year gap without anything to account for it.
I agree. I think it'd be interesting if we could break it. What would be interesting, and we'll see this maybe post when it all settles, like a state by state analysis of where the raw vote totals come
Yeah.
from. So that's the way I'd look at it. It was like, okay, tell me the state by state totals. And then I'm just going to go out there on a limb, even though there's not, again, I know like Trump's not won any of these court cases, and we could argue lots of things for why he hasn't won any of those court cases. But I do wonder is if we look at the raw vote totals from 2020 on a state by state basis, if they don't just happen to line up with the exact states that he said there was problems with. And I would be interested to see that overlap, only because the weird thing about President Trump, I gotta say, and I have not always been, a big Trump fan. He's rough in how he says it,
But he's usually right.
but he's always right.
He's right.
And so, like, he says crap, okay? Like, he made some comment, and the New York Times wrote a headline about, Trump says FEMA is not helping people in Republican neighborhoods. And, everybody just gave him like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. How could you say such a thing? And then lo and behold, Daily Wire does an undercover investigation. And oh, by the way, a female worker just lost her job because she was caught telling people to not service individuals who had Trump signs in their
How
yard.
crazy is that?
Skip over
So-
their house.
Right. So skip their house to help them with FEMA help. So it's sort of like,
Yeah.
I know that when he says it, everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. And then it's like, dang, he's right.
Yeah, but that is, and I think maybe that's why, going back to earlier, why people voted for Trump, because people have been saying stuff like this, and the general populace and or the mass media have been ridiculing people
Yeah.
for claiming certain things that might have seemed crazy at the time, but give it a few years and it becomes absolutely true. And it's like when you do that to people and then they're vindicated given enough time, there's no more trust anymore. I mean, nobody wants to be called something that they are not over and over and over again. It's like it's demoralizing to be called something you're not, especially when those people, and I think the people who did vote for Trump, they want a better and a more prosperous society, and they truly believe that they've got the right ideals to get us there, right? And they're the ones that are going to step in and they're going to take care of their neighbor, or they're going to help out with their community. It's like those are the people that if there wasn't a government, they would be the ones helping other people. Like they're the people who makes the world turn, right?
They're
And
the
so
people that take their shopping carts back
Take their
to
shopping carts back. They're the people who stop on the side of the road, pull the jack out of their truck, change the tire for the female who claims that all men are bad. Like, they're the ones who carry gas cans in their truck in case somebody runs out of gas. They're going to take care of them. I mean, it's like these are the type of men who have been ridiculed
yeah.
and are claimed as prey or all these names that they accuse us of. And it's like, no, we're the ones who just want a better society, and we're the ones who take care of society.
Amen. I love a good strong man.
Strong
So
man. I think the
no
the big
shade for me.
tell.
So does Tara. Yeah.
I think the big
strong women who like strong men. So
well,
I mean, I don't want to be married to
But
a
yeah,
man.
back to the election, the 15 million votes that we can't figure out. Yeah, what are they going to try to claim it is? COVID deaths?
I would love to see the left media. Like, are they just not even going to say anything about it? Because,
they're not.
well, Trump's numbers are not that much different, right? Oh, I lost Kelly.
We're
Oh, there
losing
she is.
people.
They didn't change much, so it's really just the Democratic ticket that has this giant loss in numbers. So is that not
well,
like
like I said, we're waiting on all the
suspect to
numbers
anyone?
to come in, but yeah, Trump's
Right.
I don't believe Trump's numbers were much different than
They're
2020
not much different. So those 15,000 people were led to believe that either just
million
didn't
people.
show up because they didn't like who was on the ticket,
15
didn't
million, yeah.
sorry, yeah, did or I don't know, maybe died from COVID or never existed in the first place. I mean, there's only so many circumstances that you can come up with, theories, but obviously something,
I mean, I'd like to know too how many. I think that Trump's vote count was probably higher than is even reported, and I'd like to
it was
know.
higher, but not to that substantial of an amount.
No. I know what I'm saying though. What I'm saying is, I think just based off of what I see in my personal life, what you see through the polls, like the exit polls, the amount of gains that he had in every single division, and then let alone Trump has not lost a fan since he ran in 2016. He hasn't. He's only gained. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I voted for him in 2020 and again in 2024. That I think is the case with a lot of people. He has gained and gained and gained, yet his numbers still come out about the same. I would call bullshit on that. I'd probably say he got more votes, and there was still some nefarious stuff that happened that didn't equate to the total tally. But the bigger question is, yeah, where are all the Democratic votes?
You're so right,
here's
Brett.
It's not like both sides had a huge difference in numbers. It's just one side.
Yeah, it was
Just
just
one
one big
side.
number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did y'all watch it live last time? Like, did you stay up and watch the election last time?
2020,
Oh, yeah.
I did. This time
Okay.
around, I thought this would go on for days, so I
Yeah.
said I'm
Do
going to
you
bed.
not remember? It was like Nevada. He was leading in Nevada, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, 80,000 votes came in, and 79,000 of them are for Biden. Like, I'm sorry, what? Nobody thought then that was suspect. Like, what?
Well, some people did, but they got canceled. So
yeah, you got canceled. You
let's
asked the question of
let's dive. Oh, go ahead.
2020.
Did you find a new statistic for us, Brett?
Well, I thought that's what the question was. I do care about facts. So 74.5 million votes for Trump 2024. Obviously, final vote tally in a month or so.
BBD.
In 2020, he got just a little over 74 million. 500,000 vote difference in this election versus 2020. So nothing really suspect there. Fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll know those final numbers. We'll bring up some charts and graphs for inquiry
next time.
All right, let's wrap up with our favorite thing of the week. So let's start with Kurt. What is your favorite thing this week?
I
Do
didn't
you have
have
a favorite
any.
thing?
I didn't have any time to reflect on it.
Okay, then let's go to Brett.
Yeah.
Give Kurt a minute. He's got to take a minute for his favorite thing.
My favorite thing, yeah, I hadn't even thought that far because I was preparing to give y'all some good meat for the day. But there's the visual that caught my interest this week on social media, and I'll keep it in the lane of elections, was the map that was circulating. That was the sea of red, basically, right? And the kind of 1,000-foot level was the states that went red versus the states that went blue. But I went on, I think CBS or one of the polling websites, and they had a more granular view of like a county by county, and showed you like the percent change effectively. So dark red versus light red. Same thing for Democrats. And that map was actually even more revealing, that this idea that America is divided is really more accurate to say urban versus rural is divided. America is, when you look at that map and you see a county by county, Americans are conservative, or certainly vote Republican. And the little specks of blue are in city centers. And yeah, they have high populations. And so, that makes a difference when you're looking at the popular vote side of things. And then go drive out of the city in any state, even California. Get out of these urban
Get off the
areas,
coast.
and it is a sea of red. And so don't believe that this country is divided. It is not. It is a class war that's being waged by the liberals. And I think this election was a revolt against that. To assume that if you walk out your door, that half of the people that you interact with are voting for somebody other than the candidate that you would support, is a false narrative. That is not true. It is just not true. And if you're in a city center, I feel for you if you're a Republican in a city center. And that's what was interesting about watching like Pennsylvania and seeing like these vote shifts in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and just seeing how that happened. But then even look at Pennsylvania, a sea of red. And it's always
We have
been
like
that way
2 or
though.
3 blue counties.
But it's
yeah,
kind of
in the
always
whole
been
state.
that way. It's just the margins were so thin this time that some of these counties that have been historically Democratic and over time have gotten less Democratic finally tipped a point of leaning Republican. Didn't go predominantly hard Republican, like leaned Republican. And when you added up all these counties, these pale blue counties, it leads to a win for Republicans. And so I think that was the most revealing to me and was interesting for the week. And I'm still like marinating on it because it's really just counterfactual to what media wants you to believe.
We're going to have so many charts and graphs in post editing this week.
Doesn't that give you hope?
Just gonna-
Well, hey, it goes back to what Trump said. The media,
children, it
the,
gives me
the
hope.
media is the enemy of the people, and I think that's
true.
very, very evident.
They just
Very
have
much
the
the
loudest
enemy of the
voices
people.
and the biggest platforms, and so they lead people to believe that everybody thinks like them.
That's true.
I would say yes, Brett. I absolutely agree with you, and that is a very positive thing to come out of the election, and that is why I think you haven't seen too much gloating on people who voted for Trump. I mean, it's just like it was a silent, like, okay, good. Now let's get back to business and let's slow this decay of American society. Let's see if we can get back on the right track. But there wasn't much gloating. There wasn't these massive parties. There wasn't these like FUs that the other side would have done dramatically.
I might have gloated a little bit.
But I will say, I do think that the divide, the starkest contrast is still the divide in men and women and young men and women. It is. It's that one is huge, and maybe we can find a graph on that. And then maybe
college
maybe
campuses. Did you not see those?
you're really soft, but maybe once we understand that, then we can begin to try and fix that.
Well, you're not
You hear me?
entirely wrong, but as Kelly noted, like women vote, there was a decent shift towards Trump. And so I would say, like, there's hope that what you're saying is that there may be more and more women each election that aren't siding with that belief that you don't like, and we'll see. And I think this election gives people a safer space to believe the things that they know they want to, or peer pressure and society's telling them that's wrong. And so, like, a narrow win for Republicans here, I don't think changes much in our society. The large win that Trump had and the pickup of these swing states, I think gives air for people to say, okay, like, I wasn't wrong in the way that I voted or the way that I thought. And I'm in the majority in my thinking. And so for women who struggle with that abortion issue, who struggle with other societal issues, like, and they decided to swing, and they did. There was a percentage that swung towards Trump this time, took a risk. I think are now being rewarded by it. And I think you're going to see that. And who was Trump's first pick? His first
A woman.
Susie
a
Wiles.
woman. But what was the headline? It didn't read first
the
woman
worst.
ever elected as chief of staff. No, that's not. I don't believe what CNN said. I think they said Trump picks, her name, and provided zero
Yeah.
context that she will be the first woman to ever serve in that position.
Yeah.
Because why would they want you to know that the misogynist that
Yeah.
what he doesn't like strong women? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. That was Mark
Mark Cuban. He doesn't like
came out
strong
with that one.
women around him.
Strong,
And strong, intelligent women.
women.
Sorry, that's what it was.
What an insult.
And so,
Which, I mean, I felt personally, victimized by that statement.
just a silly one. When he was off the
um,
campaign trail as soon as he said it.
Tara, I know, yeah. Tara, what's your favorite thing then of the week, dear?
Okay, well, my favorite thing is not political at all.
Good, neither's mine.
Okay, I just love y'all, like, legit things that are amazing that I love.
Okay.
So this is something that somebody, one of the moms out there at the ball field, she always smells amazing. Every time I walk by her, I'm like, what is that? What are you wearing? And she's like, oh, it's just this oil. So I finally got her to the link, and it's called Riddle Oils. And they're like, they work with your natural pheromones. So they might have men's, and Kelly for the girls. They're pheromone oils, so you can pick your scent. I ordered, though, you can order like the little sample box, and it gives you 7 of these little rollerball samples. And so I've
Am I
been
getting this for Christmas?
Yeah, I've been trying a new one every day. I don't think I've found one that I don't like. You just roll it on like your little, what do they call it? Pressure points.
Yeah.
And your body releases it. She says, like, she puts it on in the morning. I'll smell her out there at the ball field, and she still smells amazing. That is what I'm loving this week. And the boys have been helping me trying to decide which one I want to buy, like the big bottle of. So every morning I put on a new one, and we all take a consensus of which one we are loving the best right now. So
Very
yes,
nice.
coming into Christmas, Kelly Good, but I love a good scent. I love a perfume.
You do always
And
smell really good.
I like to smell good. I keep perfume in my purse because I'm all, like a little roller ball out there.
And I hate all smells, so there's that.
Yeah, well, you would like these though. They're subtle. They're not like,
okay.
I don't need like an overbearing, like, old woman in a church smell. I need, like, you know what I mean? I like a subtle, just like,
you want to be fresh. You want to be fresh all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you got,
all right. Anything, Kurt, or am I going on to my favorite of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the most obvious is just the sense of optimism that I think a lot of people felt this week. I mean, truly in business and just amongst friends and talking with people, there's a big shift. There was so much uncertainty this past few years, especially this past year, especially being a business owner. It's even been more so. So the optimism that has come out of this election, I think, is huge, and you see that reflected in the stock market, the crypto market. I mean, you just see it. You see it in every market as a sense of optimism.
I can finally buy my new car now that I know Daddy's back
and I,
in office.
and I think that is inspiring for me because I mean, and people like us and me is like, I mean, I consider myself a patriot, and it was very disheartening to see where this country was going and to think what the lives of my children might look like if we continue down this path.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a good visual based on our trajectory. So hopefully, God willing, that this is the start of a new page for the American experiment, and we can delay the inevitable decline of an empire.
Very good. Very good.
I love
All right,
it. We're
so
all part of the experiment, Kurt.
we are part of the human
What you got,
experiment,
Cal?
the American experiment. My favorite this week is a person. And so, as it's funny because we don't talk always about this ahead of time, but Kurt alluded, you know, as we dive in a little bit, each of us have a few things going on in our other lives outside of this little fun podcast adventure. And I have a few balls in the air right now. So, I run some things, I guess you would say, but I have the most amazing executive assistant, and her name is Shayla, and she is my favorite this week because
We do love
I,
Shayla.
yeah, everybody loves Shayla.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves Shayla more than me, which I love actually just a little bit more. But
Shayla likes me, but we like Shayla.
yeah, everybody loves Shayla. But one of the things when I'm talking to other brand new business owners, one of the very first things I try to tell them is that, you can't do it all and you need to find some type of assistant to help you do some of the things. And I have had a handful over the years of, what I've started off to be as, administrative assistants, and none have risen to the level of Miss Shayla, who quite literally keeps all of the craziness that exists in my brain, all of the different, there is not one thing that I can throw at that girl that she does not just pick up and run with. And I got to say, in a season where I feel like quite literally might have something new every 2 to 3 days that I'm throwing at her. And she never misses a beat. And I'm going to be out of town. Like, I'm literally leaving immediately after this. I won't be in town pretty much for the next 2 weeks inside my office, and nothing will get missed. Everything will be taken care of. There won't be any level of craziness that arises. And that is something that is like invaluable, but also amazing. And so, my favorite of the week is Miss Shayla.
Shout out to Shayla.
All right, so Brett, take us out on an air of positivity. So we are all, of course, a little bit optimistic about the week and the direction of America. So how do we leave with our point of optimism for the week?
Yeah. Look, there was a good win if you were a Trump supporter, but you can't just cast your vote and think you got to show back up in 4 more years. We have a pretty fragile Congress because Congress is made up of humans, and they're going to get squeezed and pushed hard all over the place. And so if you voted for Trump and you wanted that agenda to be done, as some have been saying, the mandate from the American people, you need to stay tuned in and urge your congressmen and women to stick to that plan. If you didn't vote for Trump and you voted for Kamala and are realistic about where that campaign failed and how disconnected the Democrat Party is to the voting public, spend some time taking some cues from what happened and build a stronger Democratic Party. I think there's a lot of positives to having two strong parties that are listening to the people and trying to pass policies that are going to help improve our lives. So yeah, just stay engaged. Don't be disappointed if you felt like you lost here, and don't rest on your laurels if you thought you took home the W. So I'll leave us with that.
I like it.
I'll add
God
something.
bless America.
God bless
again,
America.
Brett.
I'll add something because I think maybe in listening to you, I think maybe the important thing as individuals moving forward is to not be spiteful at the other side, but for us who did vote for Trump to prove, maybe not through our words, but through our actions, that we in fact do have the better path for America. That we're not the things that they call us. That the burden of proof is almost on us as individuals to say, hey, no, look, we're not your enemy. We're your ally. And this is a better way forward, and prove that to them.
The best revenge is success.
Well, yeah, it's true, but listen, it's not that the Republican Party is better than the Democratic Party.
No,
Not at all. But when people call you bad names, or they say you can't do something,
Right.
I mean, that's a little bit of business tip too. But I mean, it's like there's lots of people that say you can't do what you want to do, and so instead of getting even, get successful and show
That's
them.
right.